We'll go ahead and get started. Before we take roll call, I'd like to welcome a new member. Her name is Representative Rachel Baker, and she represents District 27. Rachel, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I just started my very first term in January. I represent the east side of Hamilton County in Cincinnati. In addition to being a representative, I'm a PhD prepared nurse researcher and have done a lot of research on addiction and works mostly with our ED staff in that realm. So I'm excited to be here and help in other ways.
Great. Well, welcome to the board.
Director Amen.
Here.
Director Fix.
Yes.
Director Hondrew.
Here.
Director Old.
Here.
Director Mason.
Here.
Director Meyer.
Here.
Director Kozlowski.
Here.
Director Worsbicky.
Here.
Director Cox.
Here.
Director Hohotl.
Here.
Director Bataya. Director Picciarelli.
Here.
Director Silac.
Here.
Director Kidd.
Here.
Director Radcliffe.
Here.
Director Roizen.
Here.
Director Baker.
Here.
Director McCully.
Here. Excellent. And if I can direct everybody to the screen, please. There's a little piece I'd like to read to you. Before we get started today, I'd like to briefly share a story of a family harmed by the opiate epidemic as a way of reminding ourselves of the importance of the work we're doing here at One Ohio. This is something I would like to continue to do in the future, honor those family and family members that have lost folks over the years through this terrible public health crisis. And this particular story is about a young man named Sean, who last year lost his long struggle with addiction. According to his mother, Jackie, who Catherine, Amanda, and I met in May, his story began in all too familiar fashion. Sean was just a middle schooler when a doctor prescribed him an addictive painkiller for a health condition. And neither Sean nor his mom were aware of the type of medication he was receiving. Eventually, the doctor stopped treating him when a drug screen turned up with marijuana. And the result of being cut out from his pain medication was devastating. Soon, Sean was experiencing painful withdrawal symptoms that forced him to look for other relief. And like many in the same situation, he found that relief on the street and soon was taking dangerous illegal drugs. Trying to save him took an enormous toll on his family as his mother lost everything in an attempt to fight the condition she knew absolutely nothing about. Unfortunately, Sean died at a very young age of 34. But the tragic story doesn't end there. Before his death, Sean had a daughter with a woman who also struggled with addiction. That girl was only 7 years old at the time of the death of her father, a man she called her hero. Now that girl is being raised by Jackie since the girl's birth mother also died of addiction. All these months later, Jackie still mourns her son every day, calling her best friend on earth. Today, Jackie works together with his daughter to cope with her loss. They miss everything about him, including his love, kindness, and crazy sense of humor. As Jackie has said, we cannot hear his voice, hug him, talk to him, play together, or laugh together. Our lives are forever changed. Let's think about this family and their struggles as we focus on today's business and our long-term mission. Thank you. And with that, if we could go into an executive session, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to go into executive session per 121-22 Ohio Revised Code for purposes of discussing pending litigation as well as personnel.
Second. Thank you. If we could, you would need a roll call.
Director Amen.
Yes.
Director Fix. Director Hondrew.
Yes.
Director Mason.
Yes.
Director Meyer.
Yes.
Director Kozlowski.
Yes.
Director Worsbicky.
Yes.
Cox.
Yes.
Director Hohotl. Director Bataya. Director Picciarelli.
Yes.
Director Silac.
Yes.
Director Kidd.
Here.
Director Radcliffe.
Yes.
Director Roizen.
Yes.
Director Baker. Director McCully.
Yes.
Executive session at 10:30.
We came out of executive session 11:16. And got started. In advance of the meeting, you've all received the May meeting minutes. We did not have a meeting in June, sorry, in July, we're here. We could get a motion to approve meeting minutes. We have a first, we have a second, that's. Any questions or discussions regarding the meeting directions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we just came out of executive session to discuss personnel with a executive director candidates to be sent to the governor.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to make the motion to submit to the governor the names of Lisa Mertz, Lynette Cook, and Alicia Nelson, and their resumes and bios are available.
very good.
Second.
You get a second? Any questions or discussions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then we signed, I believe it was a 6-month agreement with the Calendar Law Group, Mike and his team. That takes care of the board minutes and committee minutes. Kind of keeps us in line in terms of governance. We'd like to renew that for your contract. Mike? Okay, it's month to month. And $100 a month, so we can get a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the Calendar Law Group with our board secretary services for $2,500 a month on a month-to-month basis.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Any questions or discussions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we do have an update on the grant making, and Greta's going to give that update, but before she does, I'd like just to make a quick statement. All right. So before anyone on the board was even named, the foundation was set up through a settlement as a private foundation, not a government agency. It was designed to be an innovative approach to help our state put this important mission above politics and free from bureaucracy. Through the creation of One Ohio Recovery Foundation, Ohioans now have a chance to permanently fund substance abuse treatment, prevention, recovery in a manner that's immune to the ups and downs of politics and public budgets. By having the state opiate settlement funds managed by a private foundation and done with the transparency consistent with its charitable mission, Ohio will have the ability to preserve and deploy the resources to save lives in ways we have never seen in the past. Our all-volunteer board has a deep commitment to transparency in the way we operate and will continue to do the same. Open meetings, open grant processes, open financial processes. We know the organization is stronger when we are one, and that's why we are so grateful that the prevention, treatment, and recovery community has been so engaged thus far and will remain an integral part of the process we move forward in developing and finalizing the grant process. There's more work to do and details to be ironed out, but I know this board remains steadfast in our commitment and responsible will carry out the foundation's mission. Now I'd like to turn things over to Greta to provide an update on the grant making process. Thanks, Greta.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson Kidd and fellow board members. Our committee has been working diligently over the past several months to develop a successful grant process. And today, I'm going to take a few minutes, walk everyone through what we've accomplished to date, and also describe the work underway. So we ensure the grant processes and procedures align with the grant policy that has been approved by the board. And that happened this past spring. So our work is intended to make sure the process is responsive to the needs of the region at the local level, as well as advances with the foundation's mission. So the One Ohio Grant Policy's purpose, our statement clearly outlines our mission: to develop a transparent, inclusive, and responsive grant process that ensures that region grant funds are directed locally to those identified priorities and needs. Our committee members are keenly aware of our responsibility as board members and fiduciaries of the foundation. Our dedicated group of volunteers and these board members here have spent countless hours building a grants process that's transparent and advances the mission to save lives. And that's the mission of the Recovery Foundation. I want to take a quick minute to point out all of those board directors, the volunteer members who have been working so hard on this effort, and their names are there in the slide. Chairperson Tom Gregoire has led us through a very focused and intentional process, taking account of all of the members' feedback from the local regions to inform this work. Obviously, it's labor intensive, and we appreciate the many, many hours of these volunteers who are committed to continue this very important work. So thank you all. We do have a meeting right after this meeting. So looking back over the past year or so, here's a timeline of what we've accomplished, and it's a great deal. While conversations around the grant process began at the board level much earlier, and you can watch those discussions online, our committee began meeting regularly in January of this year, about every 10 days. We utilized the expertise of a grants consultant, and in just a few months stood up a grant policy for the board's review and approval back in April. We also worked with staff to select grant software, and that was approved by the board in May. And we'll be hearing more about that later today from Linda. The grant policy adopted by the board back in April outlines a number of guiding principles and process requirements for grant making based on guidance provided in the Memorandum of Understanding. And just want to run through these, and this is core to the work we're doing to keep these principles in mind. We want to be open and inclusive, and we're showing our commitment to transparency, inclusiveness, and responsivity. We want to listen to our expert panelists and experts at the local level, and those Ohioans who've been impacted personally and family members by addiction. We want to honor the region's autonomy. The locals and the regions know best what those priorities and needs are of our communities. They can create locally driven processes for reviewing, prioritizing those projects, and seeking assistance from the foundation as needed. And we want to facilitate regular information sharing and strong, clear communication. That's going to be one of the keys to our success. Next, we want to follow up with accountability. We understand, again, our role as fiduciaries. We want to look at outcome performance. We want to monitor that to ensure all funded projects and those grantees are doing what they intend to do with those dollars. Compliance is also critical. We want to comply fiscally and again with performance and outcomes in the reporting and evaluation of the grants at the local level. We want to ensure that conflicts of interest are disclosed, and we want to be transparent about that and account for that disclosure. We want to document it and avoid whatever conflicts that may arise during the grant review process. And finally, this is very important. We want to prevent the misuse of funds. And that's why we have these guiding principles. We want that if there was an allegation of misuse of funds, that will result in an investigation. Funds may be withheld and even clawed back if misused funds are verified. Well, we have a separate conflict of interest policy at the board level that was adopted in 2022. The grant policy reiterates that conflict of interest policy at the foundation board level and weaves that throughout our guidance and our process. This process is shown here, a flow chart illustrating how the region grants those applications will be received to the board, how they'll be reviewed, recommended at the local level, and then funded at the state level, and then monitored after being funded. So while the details guiding the policy are still being finalized, this provides a general overview of the process as outlined in the MOU and the grant policy. So what is coming next? The Grant Oversight Committee will be meeting again immediately following today's meeting, and I saw a number of members here that will stay afterwards to get busy on that. And we do announce our meetings in advance, so the public is aware and members are welcome to attend. For those unable to attend, our meetings minutes are kept and available on the One Ohio website. So today and future meetings will focus on continuing the important work of developing the details surrounding the grant application, review, award, and compliance process. Foundation staff continue to work with board leadership to develop the Akoya Go grant software and making that work at the regional level and the foundation state level. And Amanda will, like I mentioned, be providing updates later in the meeting on where we are with that. So as there are important updates to share, we will work with the foundation staff, communication team, and we want to ensure that the One Ohio regions and other stakeholders are getting the information they need to fully participate in the grants process. So we're anxious to get going. We want the program fully built so we can get these dollars back into the communities, but it's incredibly important that we get it right. And we work on getting that implementation the way we want to see it. We're hopeful we'll be able to advance this work in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Very good report. Okay,
Larry, can we ask some questions?
of course. Greta, you want to answer?
Is there anything for the, Greta, is there anything for the statewide grant process? In other words, since we have put aside some funds for things that might be done more than one region at a time, is there any flow chart being developed for that as well?
At this time, no. So the board had decided several months back, and the grants committee have really been charged with getting the regional dollars out and the process for that first. That's my understanding, but correct me if I'm wrong. That's correct. So we're focusing on getting the dollars to the regions, and some of the conversation at the grants committee level is how might some natural partnerships amongst regions emerge as that's driven from the regional level up to the foundation.
Any others?
Greta, do we have an approximate start date for the application process for the regions?
We do, and I think the RFP is planned to be released in September. Is that the timeline we're working on?
Are you sure?
I don't believe that the software will be finished, being built and ready until, potentially the end of September, with maybe an October 1st live date. So we'll still be working through that timeline, let you know when the RFPs can go out.
Hi, Greta. My name is Nanu, and I work with a nonprofit based in Hamilton County, Ohio. And I wanted to ask you, I noticed that there are.
Sorry. This is only open to the board members. If you have a question, you could submit it to our website and we'll be glad to answer it. But given the short amount of time that we have for the board meetings, we just restrict it to the board members.
Okay, sounds good. I'll take a look at the website.
Thank you.
You guys have made tremendous progress. Thank you. And I want to reiterate and support getting money back into the region as quickly as possible. That said, there's a tremendous amount of work that needs to happen in the regions too. Has there been any consideration from this committee regarding administrative costs for the regions themselves?
So I can't respond to administrative costs. That hasn't come up as far as I know, and fellow grant making committee members, we've not addressed that, but what we have focused on is getting feedback from the regions about what their priorities are, what their needs are, to ensure that as we work with the Akoya Go software for the grants, that it's responsive and tailored to the regional needs. So the regions will be really driving that, but administrative, costs, I don't think we've discussed yet.
Director, I think your question is there going to be dollars allotted to the regions for administering this grant process? Is that correct? Not administrative costs being allowed in the RFP process? Okay, so the question to the committee, when you meet this afternoon, as well as the board, would you be willing to provide settlement dollars to assist in administrative costs into the regions? I believe is that.
To remind you, there's also the 30% that the regions receive as well, directly from the
It's not
settlement.
region, that's county government and municipalities. That's a completely separate entity from what this board and regions receive. So that is a question for the committee, and then of course to for this board to make that decision.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Greta?
Is there a process in place for the regions to provide input to your committee?
Absolutely, we encourage it. So any of these directors can be a member of our grants making committee, and we welcome that. So we've got a great representation across the state of those grant members that were on the slides, of the directors who are on grant making committee, but please get your feedback to one of the members if you can't participate directly. We do need to hear from the locals, what they're seeing and their needs and priorities. Please stay after.
Will there be clarification on the conflict of interest piece? Because I just can see the makeup of our region. You know, there may be people who are applying, who have relationships with board members or our board members. Could I get a copy of that policy or reiteration so we just have perfect clarity as we're developing our grants?
Absolutely, and I believe those are on the website. Is that right? Honey is confirming it is posted on the website. But I can send it to you directly.
Greta, do you think there'll be like a webinar available to potential applicants? Once that application period opens, I think that might be beneficial.
Thanks, Jeanette. You're exactly right. And that's come up at our grants committee meeting. And we talked about how can we facilitate and equip the regions to understand the grant application process and how can they tap into the expert panelists, for example, when needed and so on. So yes, I think that's a great idea. And it's something that committee's open to and wants to make happen.
Anything further for Greta? Excellent. All right. The next item is the Johnson & Johnson settlement. We did receive, and Jim, we do have the money now, right?
Yes, we have that money.
Yep, on June 16th, yes, we do have it. $10,556,672. So we need to make a determination how we're going to allocate that. We're not going to do that today. If you want to just think about it over the next month, and in August, we'll come back and make a decision how we allocate those funds.
So just a quick question on that. So we've got year one already allocated, and year two already allocated. Does this fit into year one or year two, or is it?
This is payment 3.
Okay,
So this is, you'll have to make that's the discussion that needs to happen. Are you going to have it go out this year, or are you going to set it aside and invest it and have it go out in 24 in that round of?
I was under the impression, because it's only 10 million, that this was like additional money. This is, why is it such a small amount compared to the other prior distribution? You know?
Well, we knew that the amounts would go down. And they may go back up too. So we don't know exactly how much we're going to get every year. Jim, do you want to speak to the?
Sure. That payment is the Janssen number 3. The distributor number 3, which is 17, a little bit more than 17 million, will come sometime this month.
Janssen or J&J?
J&J was the 10 million.
J&J is Janssen.
Janssen.
J&J is the
J&J
parent.
and Janssen. And distributors, payment day hasn't been set, but the amount has. And that'll come sometime in July.
So payment number 3 combined total will be approximately somewhere in the 27 to 28 million. The reason you're
Say
seeing
that again, I'm sorry. And number 3,
payment number 3 for J&J and the distributors will be approximately 27 to 28 million dollars. For the combined payment 3. Payments 1 and 2 for J&J and the distributors were all combined together, giving you a larger lump sum.
that was the 50 million.
Correct, and that's,
The payment 3 is 10 million or the 27 that you just said, that's right.
well, the distributor payment will be approximately 17 million plus a few dollars. So if you add those together, you're going to be right around 27 to 28 million dollars.
When we vote on this, can we get like some kind of something in writing that just shows the streams so we can better follow it?
In advance of the meeting, Jim, can you make sure that we get that out for them? For the August, when we vote.
Yeah, I'll say one of the things I know that we had talked about generally is trying to make sure your level of grant funding was at a fixed constant number throughout the process so that you didn't have funding up and down to the regions. There's got to be some predictability and consistency in grant funding. So that's a good point. We ought to be able to look at the entire flow chart.
And Catherine, as I understand it, we don't know, they don't know what will be in year 4, 5, and 6.
They have predictions, but we don't
It's
have,
only predictions.
it's solely predictions. And please remember that we have 90 days to determine how and when those monies will be spent. So 90 days from June 16th doesn't mean that we have to spend them right away. We just have to pass resolution to how they are going to be spent and when they are going to be spent.
Anything else?
So Chair, we are looking for when we're gonna spend them and also maybe the percentage between statewide and or regions and
Well,
or admin.
The most important one is how we're gonna allocate, not necessarily the timing. We could determine that later. But in August, we have to, because we're gonna be right up against the wire. We have until September, like 2 days after the meeting. So it's my intent to approve it, at least the allocation, not necessarily the timing, although we can do that too. If we wait till September to do it and we don't have quorum, we're gonna be in violation. So we want to make sure we do it in August. And that's why giving you a month to think about it.
Thank you.
Yep, so in August, before we've given out any money to any of the regions to do any of the work that we want to see how they do and what bubbles up from that, we have to determine if we're going to put year 3's money either at state level projects or regional level projects. And we have really no idea how things are going to start to shake out.
That's correct.
But
Just
there
the way
there
that-
isn't any, as I understand it, there's no reason we could vote to change it after that.
I don't know about that.
That would be a really important question. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Doctor, that is a good question.
But if 2 years from now, we just said, oh, you know what, the regions are doing great work and maybe more money should be going to the regions, or nothing's really working over here, maybe we should dump it into this really great state. I mean, that's 2 years out. I mean, it seems,
Well, it was the way our monies were received.
Under the envelope.
You know, we received lump sums.
again, I'm not complaining about our process. Perhaps the MOU could have been done better, but you know, whatever. So, yeah, if we could get an answer to that question, if we're able to change our allocations going forward, that would be very helpful.
Any other? Okay, moving on to the financial report and audit process. Typically, when we are being, at our request, we've asked our outside auditor to audit us for the 2022 year. Typically, when they do that, they come in and give a 2 or 3 minute presentation, and rather have her come in and give that presentation. She's prepared a document. I'm gonna ask Jeanette to convey that to the board, please, because it didn't make sense for her to come in, and Jeanette's the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, so. Take it away, Jeanette.
Thank you. So this was prepared by Heather Dolan, CPA audit partner with the SEO CPA group. The board approved earlier this year that they would be the ones to do our audit. And so I'm just going to read what Heather has provided. SEO CPA Group Limited was formed in late 2018, collectively bringing over 120 years of public accounting experience to the partnership. Heather has worked in the nonprofit industry, performing nonprofit audits for over 18 years. SEO peer review results during 2022 resulted in a pass rating, which is the highest possible rating. The engagement letter for audit services for One Ohio Recovery Foundation was executed on June 19th. On-site procedures were conducted on June 28th for the purpose of management inquiries, understanding the entity, documenting internal controls, and performing preliminary audit testing. We anticipate procedures to be completed in late summer, early fall, along with financial statement and related notes preparation. Those charged with governance will be receiving a letter to communicate audit planning and scope, as well as a questionnaire requesting documentation of related party transactions. We encourage you to return the questionnaires to us as soon as possible. And this communication to those charged with governance will also provide our contact information for two-way communication as needed. And then Heather closes by thanking us for the opportunity to serve the One Ohio Recovery Foundation and appreciates the assistance and information already provided by management in conducting the audit.
And with that, we'll just go directly to Jim's.
Sure, thank you, Larry. So at the end of the board packet, there is the monthly operating budget and cash balance report. The operating budget report shows our longer term commitments and payments against the board approved funds. Two items to note on there. Right now, we are working through the application and questionnaire for the D&O and crime insurance. Hopefully, the amount will be less than we paid last year because the organization is more structured. The other is in the lower half of the budget report, there is a cash balance report. That shows the cash balance today and all of our accounts. We have two accounts, Huntington and Key. Since the board approved the investment policy, the foundation has earned almost $700,000 in interest. Short-term interest rates are great, right? Everything is in a FDIC insured account, so everything is protected. And I think, we need to ride this wave here as long as that continues to happen. Are there any questions on that cash? It shows the money that's coming in. So year 1 and 2 MOU, and then the money we received from J&J, and then the kind of the surprise opioid settlement payment there, the 3.6, which the board is going to set aside for investments. Any questions, comments?
Question.
Yeah.
The interest income, are we just kind of banking that for now? There's no where those funds are going at this time, right?
Yeah, we're just banking them. I'm putting them to the fund. So the MOU fund earns its share of interest. It hasn't been allocated yet, but it's in the MOU fund. So when funds come in, it gets the MOU fund, and then you allocate, right? And so but someday you'll allocate those interests.
For example, so like the interest earned on the regions allocation, that stay with the regions? Or?
That is in the MOU fund to be allocated. Not, each region's not earning it, but it's not difficult to distribute it that way. The next exception.
Any questions for Jim? Catherine, we'll move on to the interim executive report.
Hey, we have been busy. Amanda and I have been going through the applications for the expert panel. That has been a very daunting task, so we are working through that. We do have a few volunteers that will be, on the expert panel, committee to help, get those applications back to the board of directors. So there'll be hopefully something in August or early September for the board of directors on that. Amanda and I had an exhibitor table at the Ohio Opiate and Other Drugs Conference. We had a lot of interest in One Ohio. We provided information to the attendees on One Ohio and fielded many questions. As you know, I was a keynote speaker for one of their morning sessions. It went very well. There was approximately 1,000 conference attendees. I talked about my background and the information about One Ohio, but truly showing how opiates and addiction have impacted my family. So I was able to tell that story. I was also able to participate in a roundtable discussion during the conference as well. I also spoke in June for the National Association of Counties on One Ohio and how Ohio is spending their opiate settlement dollars, whether it be county and municipalities or whether it be One Ohio. So talk through that process with them. I've been working with Amanda to get her settled in. We have worked on HR issues and job descriptions, things like that. I have spent the majority of, assisting our legal team with public records requests as well. So much of my time was consumed with those things with the litigation. Continuing to speak with regions and attend meetings and answer questions. And we also have joined the chamber. So we are now members of the Ohio Chamber. As you know, we have been holding our meetings here. The chamber offers many benefits to it that will be beneficial to the foundation, and Larry can speak to that.
Besides the use of the room and the committee meetings here, we also have the benefit as we bring on full-time employees of getting discounts for healthcare through their combined, they have an insurance arm, workers' comp benefits, and there are other personnel benefits we'll be able to enjoy as being part of the membership. So anyway, it allows us not only that, but to continue to meet here once a month. And for the legislators, I'm sure you find that a lot easier than driving up to Polaris.
Speaking of Polaris, that leads into my next, we will be moving our office. We will be leaving Cohatch. Our lease is up the end of August. So Larry, Amanda, and I have toured spaces across just around the corner, Fifth Third building, and we will be moving into that space September 1st.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but Cohatch was going to give us about 100% increase, weren't they? It was pretty significant. For just one small office. We were able to get 2 offices and spaces, which is across from that state capitol, for the same price we're paying today. So it's convenient. It's also shared space, like the space we had at Cohatch. I don't think they have a room big enough for a meeting like this. But nonetheless, we do have offices there, so. And that'll be effective in August.
Right, and the board meetings will continue to be held here.
October,
October 1st.
that's when our lease is up. Any questions regarding that?
Yeah, I just want to say I was at the Opiate conference, and Catherine did an outstanding job with your presentation.
Any other questions for Catherine or comments?
It's off topic
Second, that.
a little bit. No offense to the camera dudes. Are they here at our request or?
I'm sorry.
These are, they're from PBS NewsHour.
Got it. Thank you. Didn't know why we were on camera today.
Thanks, John. Catherine, you want to talk about the expert panel? Or actually, it was covered.
It
Yeah,
was covered,
Okay.
so.
Any questions about the expert panel? Amanda, you want to give your directors of grants?
Sure. Yeah, as Greta mentioned, we signed a contract with the software company Akoya Go coming out of the May meeting on May 19th, and implementation is underway. We have been working through the build out and configuration of both our grant portal and the business operations side that we'll use for accounting. We have a project plan and we anticipate the software being up and running by October 1st, if not sooner. We are pushing to get that open as soon as possible. And that will allow us to accept applications when the time comes. Over the last 2 months, we have been meeting with Akoya Go on a weekly basis to configure our site and each of our workflows. The system is going to be used to solicit, review, and score applications, and it will also be used on the side. It will have the ability to track contacts, constituents, funding, and other data points in the system for future. And once our internal team is trained, we will announce live webinar dates and recordings so that not only the board, but our regions and grantees will have the tools in order to navigate the system. And in the meantime, we have been fielding, excuse me, questions from the regions to aid them in the process. So please come to the grant committee or staff for any feedback that you have. And we will communicate via the One Ohio website and future board meetings as there are continued developments in the process.
Any questions for Amanda? We thought it would be beneficial for the board to have an update from Connie on the communications. So Connie, come on up.
Visual, stand up here.
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it'd be helpful sometime we had all the region chairs, even on a Zoom call. Talk to some of the leadership here. I think it'd be worthwhile. I don't know what you think, Catherine.
I think that's a great idea. Really, if you could send me your regional chair information, because not all of you are the chair of your region. So it would be very helpful if we had that information going forward. So if you could share a email, your name, and a contact phone number of the chair of your region. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good to see you. Okay. Connie Luckford, I think I've met most of you, Representative. I don't know if we've met. It's nice to meet you. Just wanted to provide you all with a quick update on a lot of activity that's happened over the last 2 quarters. I know I don't talk to each of you every day, but I pretty much talk to someone with the foundation every day. So getting everyone a good overview of the activity that's been underway over the past 2 months based on the last update I provided in December is really the purpose of this here. Obviously, just reminding everyone of the priorities that we've been focusing on, both Kevin on the digital side and myself on the media relations and communication strategy side and content development side. First and foremost, making sure that stakeholders and organizations across the state understand what the foundation is and the purpose of why we're all here monthly and meeting and having these conversations about getting these resources back into our communities. Also, Catherine and I, and I'll get into this a little bit, we've spent many, basically 6 months meeting with more than 40 stakeholder groups around the state of Ohio, sharing information, making sure that there's open communication between the foundation and the organizations that represent the thousands and thousands of people across Ohio who are both impacted by addiction, but also in our communities, whether it's healthcare, law enforcement, criminal justice, local government leaders, all of those key constituencies that are very interested in how the dollars will get back into their communities. And then obviously making it very clear that we're here, we're working transparently and openly to ensure that Ohioans can keep up with the work of the foundation. To advance these priorities, we've done a number of things, including continuing to put all of our meetings and minutes and videos of the meetings and packets on the website. You know, every meeting and every month, Kevin and I are working to make sure that all of that information is posted and available. We've also created a resources page on the website with several fact sheets breaking down a lot of the really detailed information that takes a while to kind of get your arms around, whether it's the region, you know, the details of the MOU around region disbursements and the percentages, and how the board is carrying out those details through your work. So if you've not seen the resources page and the fact sheets there, I encourage you to take a look. We also created this brochure, with which Catherine and Amanda used at the OACBA event a couple of weeks ago. And we have more here. If you want to take some, we can always order more, obviously. But it's just a quick overview of the foundation. So somebody can scan the QR code, get to our website quickly and continue to learn. And I forgot to post it, but of course, Catherine's favorite, the One Ohio Pocket MOU, which we printed in January. And we used to help people quickly and easily go to the MOU and see what those abatement strategies are and all of the things that the funding will support in the future. And then we did a couple of member videos, which we appreciate our board members, which Kevin produced and helped share, again, their purpose and their mission as a board member of One Ohio, and really what, you know, why all of you are here doing this important work. And so we shared those videos out via social media and online on our website. So we appreciate the board members who participated in that. Obviously, media relations is a key part of my role. Had several articles. We engaged with a number of reporters over the past several months on a variety of issues. We also work to push out news from the organization when there's you know, something to tell, including the recent IRS designation, the 1-year anniversary that we recognized in May, and also the expert panel application availability, and then obviously the meeting recaps, which go out after every board meeting. And then digging a little bit into the stakeholder engagement, which was really a huge priority for our communication team. As I mentioned, we've met with over 40 groups. We've had multiple meetings with some of those groups over the last 6 months. Happy to have some of our stakeholders here. They're key to this process, obviously. And then as needed, have supported Catherine and Amanda as they've met with regions. And then as we met with stakeholder groups, we also asked that they would place a column in their communications to their memberships by Catherine explaining what the foundation is and how they can get involved and stay up to speed. So that's been really great to have our kind of third parties helping to share that information out to their membership, which is really important. That's the best way to get to the people who are most interested, is going directly through the organizations they know and communicate with on a regular basis. And then we launched our quarterly newsletter. We did one, I think it was late January, early February, and then we did our second newsletter in May. Those featured the latest news from all the meetings, but also I mentioned the board member videos, the 1-year anniversary updates, the accomplishments of the first year, but also looking ahead to a lot of the work yet to be done. So we'll continue to do those quarterly for now, and potentially get to a point as dollars are flowing, potentially getting those to a monthly update as we have more information to go out. This graphic just gives you a visual of the different groups that Catherine and I have met with, and other board members have joined some of these meetings as well. You know, extensive representation from the prevention, treatment, and recovery community, both the healthcare, population health, first responders, local government, and criminal justice. So a really wide range of groups. We even reached out to more. We didn't always get the meetings in, but we tried to be very inclusive in who we reached out to. And then certainly anyone who reached out to us, we set up a meeting. I think I have a new request in my inbox for one for next week. So it's still going. Looking ahead to the next 2 quarters, we obviously want to continue to grow our social media presence. That's something that Kevin was working on, you know, as we have more stories to tell, and as the dollars are flowing, we'll be able to tell those stories, and that's really going to be key in driving the message and the mission of the foundation. Obviously, we'll have executive director communications going out. We'll have an expert panel that will want to, you know, communicate about once those decisions are made. And then finally, and probably most importantly, all the communications around the grant process. Once the details are finalized, the communication team will be very involved in supporting the foundation and getting the information out, getting it out clearly, and being available to answer questions and supporting that process from start to finish. That's a very quick overview of the last 6 months of work. Questions?
I do have one comment. As we presented Jackie Lewis's son this morning, if you have anything, anybody from your region, please submit them to Connie, because like I said, we want to honor and celebrate the life of those that have lost their lives to the disease, families as well.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we can't take, but you're welcome to ask questions after.
Okay, thanks so much.
Great. Anything else for Connie? All right. Yeah.
So the Audit and Finance Committee met this morning. Our sole item on the agenda was to approve our draft travel rules. Basically, this applies for board members, directors, foundation employees, and volunteers. Board members may be reimbursed for travel in accordance with IRS current mileage reimbursement rates and processes. The travel reimbursement form, Jim will be sending that out after the meeting, along with instructions. You've already submitted a reimbursement request to Jim. You don't have to reapply or resubmit. And it will be retroactive back to May of 2022. Please note that as of today, since this policy is now in place, or travel rule is now in place, you'll have 30 days to submit your request, and keep in mind moving forward, you will have 30 days to submit your request for reimbursement. Do you want to clarify that if you are reimbursed by another entity, you cannot also be reimbursed by the foundation? Or if you're taking a business deduction on your federal taxes, you can't also be reimbursed. Yes, ma'am.
You work for a nonprofit who's paid your reimbursement, can they reimburse the nonprofit?
We did not address that in the policy. I think it's the individual, so it's my way of thinking. You may want to check with the director of your nonprofit.
I am the director.
Okay, so I think you would either charge your nonprofit or charge One Ohio.
So that, but we can't go back retroactive for all the expense reports I turned in. And have it go to the agency. Back to the-
I believe it needs to be to you.
But it's the same thing, because.
Anything else from the finance?
That was all. That was our sole agenda item.
All
So
right.
do we need to vote on that?
No, it was the committee was charged with developing.
We voted on the policy, this is the rule.
Amanda, could you please come up? So, well, before Amanda gets here, is there anything for open discussion? We do have the meeting dates set through the end of December, and we'll continue to have second Wednesday of the month through 24. There may be a couple exceptions. One of them might be November, after the election. Anything for open discussion? All right, with that, I would like to publicly thank Catherine for all her hard work and dedication, which hasn't ended today. She's going to continue to work for us, and we really appreciate your blood, sweat, and tears that you put into this organization, and you know, recognition of your dedication. We've got you a little.
Stars of gold. It's heavy. Thank you. Thanks.
And with that, we'll close, and thank you, everybody, for coming today, and we look forward to seeing you. There is a grant making committee. Is it in this room?
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
Bag.
My comment consent at 12:10 PM.